Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So this guide's going to be a little different to some you might have seen before. The video is going to have a couple of sections. The first one's going to be more generalised and contemplative, and the second is going to focus on more specific tips. So when I originally planned this video, I'd intended to avoid telling you how I think you should play, or you should do it this way, or anything like that, because Fallout 76 is a game that's designed to let players have their own experiences and do things their own way, and it does that very well. That being said, however, I have heard a significant number of people reporting negative experiences that I personally think are a result of the approach they've taken to playing the game. So much of this stems from the fact that prior to the game's release, everyone's access to it has been limited to very short windows, either at the Greenbrier event or during the beta period. The upshot of that is that people have rushed ahead wanting to see as much and experience as much of the game as possible. Ironically, however, they've actually ended up missing at least as much as they've seen. I realised early on from my own time with the beta and from watching other YouTubers playing too that there's a huge amount of story, lore and world building that you can easily run straight past if you don't take the time to thoroughly explore the locations you're visiting. In fact, there's so much that if you do, you'll probably miss some things anyway. The multiplayer aspect can contribute to that too. As fun as multiplayer in Fallout 76 is, and it is fun, it can make it more challenging to immerse yourself in the world. And given Bethesda's background in single-player games, I'm not particularly surprised to find that, in my opinion at least, if you really want to get the most out of this game, then playing solo is probably the way to go for the most part. Unsurprisingly, there are a great many guides appearing on YouTube at the moment, telling you how to level fast, or how to get caps fast, or get this great gun really early, which, to be honest, in my opinion, are mostly unhelpful. At least to anyone wanting to fully experience the game. They're also somewhat pointless in some cases, because if you run off and get that awesome Gatling laser at level 5, you've completely wasted your time, as you won't be able to use it anyway until you reach a high enough level. So it'll just sit in your stash, taking up valuable space until you can use it. Obviously you can then try a faster level, but as I said, I think that's just a recipe for a bad experience. One of the things that I've enjoyed the most about Fallout 76 is the return of a challenge to the game, something that's been missing from the latter part of Fallout 4 at the very least. And it's something that results from solo play in part, and also partly from the more slower and explorative pace I have set in my gameplay. If you power level and get those big guns early, then as you progress through the story you're going to find yourself overpowered for the areas you're visiting, and that challenge goes away, which would lose something, I think. The other reason I'm recommending a slower paced approach has to do with the way the story's told. The Fallout series has always done much of its history, storytelling and world building through terminals, notes, holotapes, that sort of thing. So there are a lot of robotic NPCs in this game that take up some of the slack on that, but without human NPCs, terminals, notes and holotapes and the like take on an even greater importance. Starting the game, you're stepping out into a world where everyone apart from you and those who have been in the vault with you for the last 25 years is reasonably recently dead. And the obvious question there is, what the hell happened? Nobody's there or hanging around to tell you about that, so you need to investigate it for yourself. If you take your time to dive into that, it becomes very, very easy in my experience to get very absorbed in the world. Just take time to keep an eye on the clock if you've actually got somewhere to be later on. So in short, if you want the fullest experience of Fallout 76, take your time and explore thoroughly and don't rush ahead. It's easy enough to pick up the pace later if you want, but retreading ground you've already covered because you missed something that's important is less fun, and you might stumble across something awesome along the way. That being said, of course, it's my opinion, so based on what I've seen and based on what I've played, I think that's, for me and probably for a lot of people, the best approach. If that kind of playstyle really isn't your thing, then approach it in whatever way you like, really. The next section of this guide should hopefully be more used to everybody, irrespective of your preferred playstyle, so let's take a look at that. Whatever your preferred playstyle, there are a few useful things to know at the beginning of the game that will get you off to a solid start, so here are a few of the big takeaways from my experience with the game so far. Number 1, don't rush straight out the vault. There are a number of things to collect in here that are very useful in the early game, and there are a few pieces of lore and other information hidden away that you can very easily miss. Once you leave Vault 76, you won't be able to return. You'll see why if you have a poke around the vault. So make sure you've picked everything up before you head out the door. Number 2. There are 2 corpses on the plaza just outside Vault 76. One of them always spawns with a machete and the other with a pipe pistol and a few bullets. Both are significantly more useful than in Fallout 4 and are well worth getting. And if you're lucky enough, you might get some extra goodies on them as well. I got a super stim pack on my first check of one of them. There's also more ammo at the nearby checkpoint and some grenades and potentially other things around as well, so those are well worth having a look for. And keep an eye out for a pipe revolver early on as well. They're slow, but they pack quite a punch and the ammo is plentiful. It's 45 if you're wondering. Number 3. Follow the main story at least at first. At least as far as completing the quests around the first town you reach. They teach you a lot about how the game delivers its content and about the new and the returning mechanics as well. Things have changed quite a bit from Fallout 4, despite how similar the game seems on its surface. Many things now require you to find plans to unlock, especially around the camp building aspect, and you'll pick your first one of those up during that particular early part of the game. So the next couple of points focus on the survival and crafting elements of the game, and they're quite closely linked and lead together quite nicely, so we'll have a look at those all together. Number 4. Junk's even more important in Fallout 76 than it was in Fallout 4. Rather than selling what you collect, which you can do at the many robot vendors around, you should take your junk to any workbench and scrap it. It won't work at cooking stations, but if you're at a power armor station or any other kind of workbench, it will work. As scrapping can significantly reduce the weight of the items you're carrying, and it also provides resources for crafting, which you'll be doing an awful lot of. Number 5. Wood is very important. You'll be needing it to build, to craft, and to cook with in a change from Fallout 4. There are fallen logs scattered all over the ground everywhere in Fallout 76, so if you go up to one, press the interact button, you'll grab some wood. There's also wood piles near a great many of the structures in the game as well, and those can be activated in the same way. You can also visit the lumber mills scattered around the map, like this one just south of Vault 76, and collect wood from the log piles. The local protectrons will also give out wood periodically, along with some rather entertaining dialogue, that is, if you haven't already shot them.
Trees plus lumberjack protectron equals desirable wood product.
Number 6. Pick up and scrap any guns and armour you find that you don't need. They'll provide you with resources, but more importantly, that's how you learn how to craft more powerful upgrades for your gear. Crafting your own gear and upgrading as you go provides a great sense of satisfaction, and when you get that badass new upgrade, you'll be over the moon about it. Honestly, I have never been so excited for a 10mm pistol as I was in this game. You'll also be able to craft better level-dependent versions of guns and armour as well as you progress, so watch out for those. 7. Ditch any ammo you won't actually be needing. Though it's relatively scarce early on in the game, it's very easy to fill your stash's limited capacity with ammo that you don't actually need, so ditch that pile of 38 that you're carrying around. Speaking of your stash, you can build a stash box at any camp or workshop, and they can be found inside any Red Rocket or train station, and you can also use the stash boxes built by other players as well, and they'll have your own belongings in rather than the other players, so no need to worry about anybody taking your stuff. Any resources stored in your stash are usable from any crafting station in the world as well, so you don't need to carry 50 desk fans and typewriters with you at all times, which is always helpful. 8. You need to eat and drink to survive. Failing to do so will reduce your maximum action points and increase your vulnerability to disease, most of which are gross, by the way. So make sure you pick up any antibiotics or disease cures you find along the way as well. Number 9. Food and drink you prepare yourself have a number of different buffs. For the most part, I wouldn't worry too much about this at first. It's up to you though, of course. But I would keep an eye out for things like blackberries. Blackberry juice increases action point regen, which is particularly handy when you become over-encumbered. And you will. Brahmin meat also makes ribeye steak, and rad stag meat, if I get the words out, makes grilled rad stag, both of which increase your carry weight. Although it's worth noting that I don't think the effects of 2 ribeyes will stag, but I think a ribeye and a grilled rad stag will, and vice versa as well, though I'm not 100% sure on that one at this stage. Worth checking out. Number 10. You will get irradiated. Radiation reduces your maximum health, as it did in Fallout 4, but at higher doses can result in interesting mutations, like this one, which is pretty cool. In a significant switch from Fallout 4, however, most pre-war food is not irradiated, probably because Appalachia wasn't directly hit by the bombs, but it does tend to have fewer buffs. Radiation can of course be cured with Radaway, but it's worth noting that your resistance to disease will take a hit if you do. So there we go, 10 useful things to know when getting started in Fallout 76, and hopefully some useful advice on getting the most out of the game too. So I hope you enjoyed the video and that it was helpful to you. If you did, hit those buttons for me. Social media links as always down in the description, and do drop in and say hi if you happen to catch me streaming as well. For now, thank you very much for watching, and I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.